All right, welcome everybody. I know you are getting logged in here. I'll give you a second to get settled as I get settled here. So for those of you who are new to Zoom webinars as opposed to Zoom meetings, which I doubt is many of you, most of you probably know what you're doing here already, but just to draw your attention to the controls, you'll see we have a chat area. um, the chat area defaults, you can probably see at the bottom there, it defaults to going to all panelists. So if you were to type hello in the chat right now, I would be the only one that would see it in the chat, unless you change that little drop down above where you type your message to say all panelists and attendees. So I just typed hello in the chat. You are welcome to say hello back, so I know you're conscious. But you'll want to change that to all panelists and attendees so everyone can see it. Good job. Thank you, Chelsea, for setting the example there. Um, then, so I won't really be monitoring the chat during this 30 minutes. But if you want to get my attention, there's another button there at the bottom. It says Q&A. So anything you type in the Q&A, I will see that. So if you have a direct question for me, and I've left, I hope, plenty of time for us to kind of have more of a dialogue here. Even though this is not a Zoom meeting, I can't see you, and I can't hear you. I want us to be able to dialogue. So you can go into the Q&A and type questions to me, and I will share those questions. Also, I can, if needed, unmute you and we can have a conversation if that's just easier. You'll just have to send me a question letting me know that's what you want to do. If you have something that's just too long to type, that would make sense. But we have just a 28 minutes already remaining. These are quick learns. So welcome to everybody. My name is Thom Pirone. Most of you who know me probably know me through the Pro Coach program at Pro, which is Pinellas Realtor Organization's coaching program. I'm the senior coach for that. And others of you may know me through my consulting firm, Stronghold Training. That may or may not matter to you, but my background is in property management. When I first got out of the military, my first job was in property management. I worked with a very large real estate investment trust and managed a lot of properties, did a lot of multifamily work. So I don't know everything, but I do know something. And what I especially know is how challenging property management can be, and how you are often wearing different hats every day and figuring it out as you go. And so that's just a part of life. And I have the greatest respect for those of you in property management, knowing how challenging it was. As a matter of fact, the thing that prepared me best for property management was actually the military. It was a perfect transition out of the military into doing something that was different every single day. And I would greatly encourage you to hire transitioning veterans for that reason. They are a perfect fit for property management. It's the military is a lot like property management, hopefully less combative. But at times, there are certain times when you need that thick skin. So let's dive right in. What we're here to talk about today is writing ads that lease. So I do a lot of marketing consulting with Stronghold Training. I go into companies and work with entrepreneurs, work a lot with realtors on ads. And the key to advertising, period, if you're going to take any note, this is really probably all you need to write down. The key to all advertising, if you will, is not so much in the magic words as much as copywriting, as it's called, matters. But really, the key to a successful ad is and always will be the offer itself. Now, we want that offer to be clear. We want that offer to be enticing, but you see it all the time. People can try to make a weak offer sound enticing, and it's just the offer doesn't appeal. The offer doesn't appeal. And many of us have probably even purchased things or accepted offers that weren't even well made, but the offer was good. What people are looking for is a good offer. And so what matters is that you're making a good offer. Well, how does that pertain to leasing? How much can we say? Well, traditionally, what people do is they do what's always been done. And in a way, you want to be careful about departing from that too much, because if we depart from what's always been done too much, it starts to not make sense to people. We're used to seeing certain things in certain ads. As a matter of fact, it's helpful to compare and contrast things that are that are similar, because we can look at, say, the specifications. Now, you think of it like buying a car. if you go and buy a car and you hear that you should be looking for miles per gallon and horsepower and all that kind of stuff, warranty, you start using those things to compare to other cars. So if another offer is totally out in left field to try to be unique, that can actually be dangerous because people are going to come with questions like, well, what's the miles per gallon? So of course we have to talk about number of bedrooms, price per square feet, amenities. These are normal. So where can we make a unique offer? And that's what I want to talk a little bit about today. Instead of giving you a in-depth slideshow, I'm just going to share with you the notes that I'm going to email you after this, and then you can just add to them any notes that you take while we're talking. And my hope is to get through it relatively quickly so that I can answer questions, because I'll probably cause more questions to be asked than I may give answers in just the presentation. So I'm just going to share a little Word document here, nothing fancy today. And I'm just going to kind of walk through some notes. And if these are kind of my best practices, if you will, and the time we have, of things that I think are important to be thinking of as we consider writing ads that lease. Some of this may be new to you and some of this may be stuff you've always known. But in my experience, this is what has worked. And I don't want to sit here and brag about why you should be listening to me or whatever, but I will say, and this is a credit to the marketing department and my leasing agents and everything, but I will say that, but I did manage a group of a property that, and a very large company, did win awards for being one of the top properties in leasing in the Southeast. I won many awards for that. And I think a lot of that has to do with sales process as much as it does in marketing, just being good at following up with people and getting people's names and not trying to lease everything on the first visit, and actually calling people back during the week was probably really the reason why we did so well. I think it was more tenacity than any sort of magic. Hard work pays off, especially in the sales game, as does following up on relationships. That said, I do think there's something to be said about the draw in. And I think that we did a very good job, especially on properties where we might not have even been the best property in the area. I think we did a good job of making our property appeal. Not in a false way of advertising, but just making what we had look the best it possibly could. And so start with this. As I've already said, we want to go beyond the typical, but we need to have what is expected. Okay, so if they're looking for apartments or homes or whatever it is that we're leasing here, again, if number of bedrooms matters and square footage matters, we have to have that stuff in there. But what we do need to change is the typical embellishments to something that matters. For example, this isn't a step on any toes, but we all see it. We all use the language because it's safe. Instead of saying gorgeous, spacious 4-bedroom, maybe say something like this: this home rarely gets new tenants because it's so perfect. Something unique like that. Or the unique feature about this cozy home is the huge kitchen counter, but you have to see it. There's some things like that, that if you're thinking more like someone who's been there and less like someone who's looking at multiple ads, it matters. And that's the key. I'm going to say that again. That's not in my notes. When you're writing ads, this is what I try to challenge myself to do, is to not look at the competition and try to write as if I'm someone who's shopping a bunch of different properties. But instead, I want to write an ad as if I'm the person who went to the thing I'm advertising for, went to the home, fell in love with it, and now I'm really excited and trying to share the good news about that thing. So would I use terms like it's gorgeous, it's spacious? Yes, but think of it this way. The person you're telling this to is going to say, well, they all say that. So then what's the next thing you'll say that makes them go, hold on, no, this is different. You don't understand. You'd have to see it to believe it. But the thing is, this just the feeling when you walk in is so unique. Oh, that's good. The feeling when you walk in is so unique. You want to say those things because that gets people to go, I should probably check it out. I should probably check it out. Which leads me to my next point. I may be jumping ahead of myself here, but one of the things we tend to do is we try to lease the apartment in the ad, or we try to lease the home in the ad. And to a certain extent, we may need to lease sight unseen, but be careful with that. Ultimately, the goal of advertising should be to get people to come and see it, to get people to come and see it. If you have a good sales process and you have great people for leasing, then we can actually say too much. And in saying too much, sometimes we hurt our efforts. I'm going to get to that here in a second. So the first point is to say something that can only be said about this property. So instead of just saying gorgeous, spacious 4-bedroom, which could be said about maybe every property, it just kind of falls on deaf ears after a while. And so they start hunting for their own. So when you say something that's said, it could be said about any property, people start looking for something unique. So instead, let's give it to them. Drive traffic to a phone call or appointment if possible. For example, talk about the easy leasing process. Try to make it easier to convert them. And express urgency if you believe it will lease quickly. We expect this to go fast. My point is whatever you say that's unique, whatever you say should be unique to that property, should be special, should stand out, but you don't have to say everything. We just need them to come and see it. So what is it that we can say that's going to get them to come and see it? And the more we say then, therefore, waters down that main thing. So when you're saying lots of stuff like gorgeous, spacious 4-bedroom, and it has closets, and it has roof, and it has walls, and it has plumbing, all of a sudden we forgot about the unique element. So let the main thing, the main flavor of the dish stand out. Okay. Now, using Facebook lead ads is really the best way I have found to kind of initiate conversations with people. There's a lot of renters on Facebook, of course, because a lot of people on Facebook. I know some are leaving now to other platforms, but Facebook still boasts of tremendous numbers, and it's quite easy to reach local people with Facebook leads ad. And the difference between a Facebook lead ad as opposed to a normal Facebook ad is a lead ad has a pop-up form which asks for name, email address, and phone number. So then you can reach out and contact people. So I really like to use the Facebook lead ad, not just boosting a post. I'm talking about going into Facebook Ads Manager, starting a Facebook lead ad, and using that for leasing is my number one favorite way to drive traffic to rentals. For that to work, you have to understand how those platforms work or have a marketing department that does. And I, on my YouTube channel at Stronghold Training, have short 15-minute tutorials and even 2-hour trainings teaching you how to do that. So that's something you want to know how to do technically. But the lead ad is the type of ad to use there. All right, next best practice, if you will. As you guys already know, pictures are everything. More people are going to shop with their eyes than they are with their mind, especially when they're trying to quickly sort through multiple places. They're going to look at picture, 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 stop, picture, 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 stop. It's not going to be so much reading. They've probably already used whatever database they are to sort out the number of bedrooms, etc. They're going to look at pictures. And this is a big one I see. Go with quality over quantity. Man, it's like everybody feels like they have to have a picture of every closet, every hallway, every room. And I would be careful with that because, again, it waters it down. If I have 6 pictures and all 6 are gorgeous, I want to go see that place. And it's kind of like selling cars. If you get them into the dealership, they're more likely to buy. So people don't want to be shopping forever, but it's easy to shop online. So it's also easy to disqualify you by seeing a bad picture of a broom closet. It's just not necessary. Highlight the good, toss out the unnecessary. More is not better in the world of advertising. Better is better. Less of better. Letting that main ingredient stand out. Of course, that's supposed to say always. Always check the comps. This is what's great about using a Word document and not a PowerPoint presentation. I can fix it. Always check the comps. Now, hopefully you guys already have that process where you check the competing similar homes or apartments in the surrounding area as a rule. If you don't, do it. It's very, very helpful. And but you're mainly because your shopper will. They're looking at the comps. So if your picks don't look better than the competition's picks, get better picks. I see it all the time. You'll see a place with a pool. It's just not a great photo. And then you'll see another place with a pool, professionally done photo. they get more traffic because of the photo. I've been doing Facebook ads and consulting on Facebook advertising for a long time now. Photos stop the scroll. Photos win. So less photos, more quality photos. That 1 or 2 or 3 main really good features of that property need to have an excellent photo. It's just, it can't, words are not enough. So just really make sure you're excellent there, and you need to be better than the competition. So if there's anything you can do to make a property get more traffic and you feel like your competitor's lowering your price, they're having lots of lost leaders and all that type of stuff, get better photos. Honestly, makes a killer difference. And we can always improve our photos. So next, start with an ad. Start an ad. When you start writing your ad, start out with what stands out. So start out with what stands out. Gorgeous, spacious 4-bedroom. That's nice, but that doesn't really stand out. Okay. And sometimes the best way to do that is to actually ask a relevant question. To ask the question the shopper is asking, oftentimes is the most effective language in copywriting. Having a tough time finding space for the money may be better than, this is a great space for the money. I want to say that again. Instead of saying, this is a great square footage for the money, a claim, which they would expect you to make. Instead, you come alongside them when you ask a question. Having a tough time finding enough space for the money? Well, yes, I am. You get me. Well, we've got something we'd like to show you. Actually appeals better than making a claim. Also, avoid unnecessary terms and conditions in ads. We have a tendency, I think it's just a property manager thing. We always want to make sure the terms and conditions are there because we're big on compliance and we want to make sure we're not, missing the rules. It's just kind of a tendency towards property managers. We just kind of think that way. We want to make sure all the rules are clear. Just it's unnecessary in the ad. It's necessary in the leasing process, but you don't have to say in every ad, every policy you're following and, terms and conditions apply and must meet certain income levels and all this. Okay, that's all true. But right now we're just trying to get them to pick up the phone and call us. So I would leave a lot of that out. It's just a waste of space and it waters down the highlighted parts. All right, next, when we talk about location, which, hey, look, let's face it, some places we're trying to rent, location's all it's got going for it, right? I mean, not every place is a gem. So when you talk about the location, make sure you do that in terms people can relate to. And again, this is another area where I see lots of filler language, which is unnecessary. People will say close to shopping. Okay, well, it's in the city. I would hope so. Unless it's out in the country, I mean, close to shopping doesn't really mean anything. It's a waste of a bullet point. And that doesn't bring people closer. And in advertising, anything that's not bringing them closer to an action is always pushing them further away because you have limited time that they're willing to look at your ad. So it's better to say something like the local Publix is new and has tons of parking. Say what friends would say. Oh, you got to check it out. Oh man, there's this great burrito place on the corner. It's just phenomenal. Walking distance from Capital Tacos, walking distance from, like you want to say stuff like that, which builds up some curiosity and makes them already feel like they're in the neighborhood. That's the goal. Make them feel like they're in the neighborhood. They get the sights, the sounds, the flavors of the neighborhood, the good things of the neighborhood, instead of just close to shopping, on a bus route, convenient access to I-4. Okay, but how about 2 minutes and you're on I-4? That sounds like what a friend would say. Or the stoplight leaving this apartment has no traffic compared to other local communities. I might not want to say compared to other local communities, but you get the point. The thing that the people living there would tell people about is stuff you really want to have in the ad instead of the generic stuff that people don't really swallow. All right. That is the main things that I wanted to walk through here there, which gives us 10 minutes to go through. And I'm happy to look at some of your ads or to talk about them. So if you want to jump in the Q&A right now, maybe tell me something. I'm happy to write an ad for you real quick. Or if you have a question specific to this, some of the legal questions I might not be able to ask just because I'm not really qualified or I might not be able to answer them, mostly because I'm not qualified to answer them, but I'll take a shot as long as you hear my disclaimer that I may not be qualified to answer all legal questions. But if you have an advertising question that I did not cover today, hit me up in the Q&A, or I will pull up the chat here. And I'm going to email my notes out to you. And the 30 minutes we have, I want to make sure you just get some best practices. While you're typing those questions in the Q&A, I will add this. So the one thing that I'm always asked when I talk about advertising on Facebook is, well, what about the other platforms? What about Instagram? What about non-social media? What about mailers? What about? And the answer I always give is the same, which is the way you should approach every ad is going to depend on the platform, because the platform is going to depend on the audience. But again, what matters is the offer. All right. What matters is the offer. So think of it like this. The picture stops the scroll. Or if it's mail, the picture stops the scroll to the next mail. Whatever people are looking at, the picture never leases. The picture just stops them and gets their attention. That's all the picture does. The next sentence or two gets them curious, which is why I like to lead with a question. Gets them curious. So if you're going to talk about it being an offer, it needs to, hear me on this, have some level of intrigue. Some level of intrigue. Gorgeous, spacious 4-bedroom may be intriguing to someone, but probably only because it's a low price, or it's just exactly what they're looking for at the right time in the right place. And you can't make that kind of offer to everybody unless you're having a conversation. A right offer to the right people at the right time is going to be a lay down sale. What we're trying to do right now is get some level of intrigue so that they examine it more. Hear me. We want them to examine it instead of examining the competition. That's all advertising is trying to do. The biggest mistake made in advertising, especially when it comes to leasing, is we try to make the sale in the ad. Now, on your landing page, things like that, if you drive them to a website, that's different. Perhaps there you do funnel them to the sale. Maybe you don't have an in-person leasing process. That would be done on the website, and that's a much bigger animal. But the whole point of the ad is to stand out, develop some level of intrigue, and get them to take the next action, literally to get them to go from their emotional brain to their rational brain. And the best way to have that rational brain be working is in a conversation with you, to get them to make a phone call. So when you put all this other stuff in that is important, but not enough, not what is necessary to get them to make the phone call, we end up not standing out. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, questions are starting to come in. What's the difference between Facebook Marketplace and the Facebook lead ad? So a Facebook Marketplace is more like garage sailing, if you will. So you can definitely publish it there. Nothing wrong with that. Facebook Marketplace is not an ad, meaning the audience is just whoever sees it. So based on their search criteria, they can find you there. It's kind of like having a listing. Where a lead ad is an ad you've paid for with a targeted demographic that is going to show up in their news feed. So Facebook Marketplace won't show up in their news feed. This will show up, like they'll be scrolling, seeing pictures of cats and family, and then all of a sudden, boom, are you spending more right now for rent than you really think you should be? New properties are showing up all the time. Check out this one. It may appeal to you. And there's a gorgeous picture, and then they click for more, and then it pops a form that says, here's some bullet points about the ad. The form allows you to put bullet points in a description. If you'd like a tour or to ask some questions, fill out the information below and we'll email you the details. And then they put in their name, address, and phone number, or name, email address, and phone number. And then you can automatically have an email go to them, and then have a leasing agent pick up the phone and call them and start building the relationship and trying to drive them to the sale. So Facebook Marketplace doesn't really do that. It's just kind of the listing is there. They would see it, maybe initiate a phone call. Still good, definitely be there. But the lead ad is more targeted. All right, great question. So if you're sitting right now looking at your ads and you go, okay, how do I apply what Thom just said? This is how I would coach you. First thing you're going to do is you're going to look at it and you're going to say, how does it look compared to everything else that's out there? Does it sound like it's kind of the same flavor of Slurpee? right? Is it the same flavor? If it's the same flavor, then what you're going to say is my offer good and clear? That's the first question you ask. Is my offer good? Is my offer clear? Or am I just talking about it? Is my offer good and clear? So an offer should sound like, come and live here because it's great. And this is why. So is my offer good and clear? And then am I highlighting why the place is great to the exclusion of everything else? My pictures stand out. The features I'm talking about, I'm not doing it in a plain, boring, like everyone else is doing it kind of way. And that other language that we feel like we have to put in there, like parking is available. There's a leasing office, rec center. Great. But is that all it says? If so, if that rec center is really not all that glamorous, guess what? You don't even have to tell them about it because no one's going to care, right? You can put that it's there, but put that in the brochure, put that in the landing page, put that in the email, put that in the details. What needs to show up on the ad needs to be the things that make people go, wow. And that's it. And then the next call to action, the next step needs to be clear. Call for an appointment, drop by, schedule, go here, do this. Intrigue in that offer is what's best. Meaning, oh, that's interesting. That looks great. That's interesting. Let me see more. Now we've gone from emotional brain to rational brain. And then we can kind of walk them through some of the more boring details, if you will. But until that point, the ad is what gets them to jump off. Don't let ads be educational. Let them be gripping. And you'll know. You'll know. And so those are things where I see most people go wrong. And I was going to pull up a few because it was very easy for me to find what's typical. I was going to pull up a few. I was just terrified it would be one of yours. so, um, so just go and search um, rental homes in the Tampa Bay area. Look especially at the large national firms and what they do as a not necessarily a guide of what to do, but maybe even as a guide of what not to do. And make it a habit. Every time you sign a lease with someone, I want you to say, what stood out to you about this place? This is going to be a game changer for you. So I'll leave you with this nugget. Most people are going to tell you something that wasn't in the ad. What was it that made you settle here? It's going to be something that they didn't know about till they got there. And that is and should be very convicting about our ad process. We're oftentimes talking about the things that don't matter. But when you listen to people, they'll say things like, was that it was just the feeling when I pulled up, it was on a cul-de-sac. It stood out nice. It was close to the school. Now you could put close to schools in there, but did you say it's walking distance from the school? Did you say you're 2 minutes from being in the car line? How would they have said it? That's oftentimes a subtle change in text that makes all the difference in traffic, especially when you're trying to lease a place that's got, isn't all great. Like we know you're probably not sitting here listening to this today because you got a gem that won't lease. It's because you've got one that has issues. And so you've got to highlight the thing. People will rent it. People live places you go, I would never live there. Why did they move there? Because something stood out to them. You need to find that thing and highlight that thing to the exclusion of everything else. Last question before we are done. MLS now syndicates to HomeSnap. I get a bunch of responses, but almost zero conversions to show any others seeing the same. Thank you, Tim, for that. I'm not as familiar with HomeSnap. I mean, I'm familiar with it, but I've never consulted with anyone. That's not true. Not on the rental side as much. So you're saying you're getting a bunch of responses, but zero conversions to show. I would have to look at that closely to give probably an educated opinion. Otherwise, I'd just be repeating a lot of what I just said. But oftentimes in any sales situation where you see a bunch of traffic and low conversion, the answer is this. So this is just an advertising 101 type of thing. So you're probably already familiar with this, Tim, but this is, if I had to give an advertising 101 class, and we'll end on this is what it is. When you're dissecting like the numbers, a lot of traffic and low conversion means the ad is working, right? The landing page is not, or the process is not. So more often than not, people click on an ad, and then because we have ADHD when we're on social media, we'll click on an ad and we'll go to like forms to fill out and stuff like that, and it's too much. The ad was promising, but now we're asking for more than they're willing to give. We didn't have enough bond. So we don't actually need to change the ad. What we need to do is either clarify the process or simplify the process or beef up what's going to happen at the end of the process, get them excited while they're filling out the form, if you will, or all three. So I've got clients that have tremendous traffic in their ads. They're not selling. It always goes back to when they got there were too many choices, looked like it was going to be work. We went from fun and excitement to this is terrible. And so a lot of times what I say is drop all the forms and just get a phone number and let's start a conversation, because once it's relational, we can kind of get through the things that they weren't willing to fill out a form because they didn't have questions answered. So ad looks good, click on it, go there. Oh, I got to fill out all this information. I don't want to start a lease yet. I just wanted to see more. It's better just to have a conversation. So usually it's a problem with the sales process. So probably they're running great ads and somewhere on the back end, the sales process is failing, and we need to just make it shorter and get to a person quicker. Hopefully that's helpful. You guys have been quiet, but I hope this has been helpful. I will see you guys on the next training. I think I have a pro training, if you are interested, later today on sales process. So I think that starts at 2:00, 2:30. It's on the pro website where we're going to be talking about from a real estate side, from a listing and buyer side, not necessarily on property management. It's the same thing. How to have a good sit down process absolutely applies to leasing. So if that is something you want to check out, I think you could still register for that on the pro website. Otherwise, you guys are great. Keep on doing what you're doing. If you did not check out the NARPM national conference, I was on a panel on that. There was a lot of good stuff. Go back and watch the recordings on that. A lot of emotional intelligence, a lot of training, a lot of good stuff on just getting through this tough time. I was actually surprised that we didn't talk a little bit about COVID leasing, but Elaine says, please repeat. Don't let ads be informational, or don't let them be educational. They need to be intriguing. They need to be intriguing. More intriguing, more gripping than informational, which again, property managers, we like to give all the details. And that's great once they're in front of us. Not great when they're scanning, right? So we are out of time, but as the credits are rolling, I will say, leasing and COVID, in my opinion, for whatever it is in a sea of opinions, is the same game as it was before in a lot of ways, on just the advertising relationship, getting them in, that kind of stuff. It's really not. I don't think that's going to be the issue as much as other things that you're facing right now, which is, especially if you're in the multifamily side, just as there's more apartment complexes getting built than ever before. And if they didn't hit their numbers because of COVID, the lost leaders and some of that stuff you're seeing, it's just all the numbers game more than anything else. Ultimately, people will go where they can save a lot of money up front. And, there's those challenges. There's a lot of homes being purchased by large national companies being very quickly flipped and rented for a low price, and they don't have the service that some of you guys probably have, being smaller and more local. That's all true. But that's stuff that the sales process needs to reveal. On the advertising side, better pictures, they don't take the time with them. Better pictures, better descriptions, you'll get the traffic. And then through the relationship, you should be able to sell them over the national guys. Hope that's helpful, guys. And I'll see you on the next training. Thank you.